Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Forza Italian Football Podcast. I'm your host, Conor Clancy. I'm very, very, very happy this week because I've been back inside a Serie A stadium for the first time. First time in a stadium since May. First time in a Serie A stadium since, I think, February. So it's been good. I'm joined to talk about that latest Serie A action by my friend Vito Doria. Vito, it's good to see you and speak to you again. How is everything?
Look, in general, things are okay, but at least football is a great distraction, and I think in general the European leagues they've been exciting, but Serie A in particular has been on fire so far. So, yeah, really looking forward to talking about the latest action from round two.
Yeah, it has been on fire, but there have been two nil-nil draws in Serie A this season. Both of them came this weekend, and both of them were games that I did the match reports on. So, guys, I'll warn you in the future if I'm doing a report on a game, maybe don't watch it. Also joined by another friend of mine, Kev Pogorzelski. Kev, it's good to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. I've also still getting into stadiums, so the world isn't ruining that for us. I'm hopefully going to be allowed into San Siro to watch Liverpool
Mm.
later in the season. So maybe you can tell me if I'm going to have to jump through loads of red tape. Did you have that this weekend going in on
Right. So yeah, I was back at a game, and this is the first time I've been at a game since the Green Pass was implemented. Obviously, I've been at games throughout the pandemic. Fortunately, I've been one of the lucky ones who's still been able to go. But no, it was very very straightforward. It was a little bit strange because when I got to the Mappe at first, it was the first time in I guess 18 months that I collected my accreditation from the usual place and not at the actual gate. So everything was back in order. The tickets weren't being sold where they had been getting sold during the weird months of the pandemic where people were still allowed to go to games. The accreditation was picked up like pre-COVID world. And then I went up to the gate and there were little, I guess, little gazebos set up with the people doing the green pass scanning. So I walked up to those, got the green pass scanned, went over, got my ticket scanned, and went in. So it, I won't say that it added another queue, but it just added another stop off point en route to the gate, and it was all very very straightforward. Although my heart did stop momentarily because I've known that a lot of people have been having slight issues with the green pass in Italy. And when I got to the gate, the girl scanned it, and I was kind of half paying attention, and all I heard was "non va," it's not working. And then she scanned it again and says, "No, it's not working." And then she looked at her superior, who thankfully came over and did it from a different angle, and it worked. And I was so relieved when I heard that "doo ding" rather than the "doo doo." So it was nice, but no extra complications. So I would say, although that's from the press side of things. I'm not sure in terms of getting tickets if it is any more complicated, but based on my experience, Kev, you should be okay.
Good, good. I did see somebody. Must have been a fan based in Italy. Was going to the Bentagodi, and he managed to get tickets fine. It didn't look like he was a season ticket holder. Obviously, they're playing into, which is probably a very popular game. But he said he had two checks here, and then another two things were checked. But he just they left it very early, and got in obviously, and
I did see that actually at
saw a
Lazio
football
too. A
game.
friend of the pod, a long time listener, Scott, who said that he had to go through I think two different checks for the green pass. Curiously, but anyway, yeah, let's see. Anyway, guys, look, we're here to talk about the Serie A action that happened on the pitch. Before we get into it, just another reminder that Forza Italian Football are now on Patreon. We will be doing a lot of exclusive content solely for our patrons. We did a bonus podcast last week. Myself and Ewan did a quick preview to the round to come, which has now been and gone. And there will be a newsletter which is starting tomorrow, actually. I'll be sending that out. So do head over to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football. Sign up for as little, from as little or for as little, who knows, €2 a month. Maximum is €10 a month, and there's a nice middle one of €5 a month. So head over there, sign up, and get bonus content as well as priority to questions on the podcast. Round two It's finished. The results are as follows. Udinese beat Venezia 3-0. Venezia really struggling to adapt to life in Serie A since their promotion. Verona put up a fight but lost 3-1 to Inter, inspired by debutant Joaquin Correa. Lazio beat Spezia 6-1. 6-1. Ciro Immobile with a first half hat-trick. Atalanta drew 0-0 with Bologna. Fiorentina beat Torino 2-1. Empoli, for the first time ever, went away to Juve and won 1-0. Napoli beat Genoa 2-1. Sassuolo and Sampdoria played out a scoreless draw. Roma beat Salernitana 4-0. And Milan thumped Cagliari 4-1. So they're all the games. Those are all of the results. And we are going to start where else than at the Allianz Stadium, where Vito Empoli went away and beat Juventus 1-0. What a result. As I said, it's the first time in their history that they have won away at Juventus. Incredible.
Oh, the result in itself was incredible, but it wasn't a fluke either. It was a surprising result considering that Empoli have just been promoted back into Serie A, and also Juve won 9 titles in the previous decade. But Empoli, they took their chance in the first half thanks to Leonardo Mancuso, but they were very composed on the ball. The coach, Andrea Zoli, had his players in natural positions that suited them. He didn't deviate from what was there last season under Dionisi. And when they were on the ball, they were a lot more fluid. They were able to create chances, find the spaces. So although they were strong defensively and they were able to limit your space most of the time, they were still able to generate those scoring opportunities, and they probably should have scored another one or two.
No, they should have. They should have. And I'm really, really happy for Empoli, Mancuso, and Andrea Tolli, of course, because I'm sure you guys have seen, I hope you guys have seen on Twitter, a video has resurfaced from, I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, when he took Empoli away to Juve and they lost. He went to do his press conference after Allegri had done his, and the press room is empty. And he arrives and he looks around and he thinks, okay, and the first thing he says is, Allegri's already come and gone, yeah? And it sounds like there are two journalists there, and they just quickly say, yes. He goes, okay, this is why there's nobody here. Anyway, Poki Mabwani, I just loved that. I loved that from him, and it's nice to see him go back there and get a win. I'm sure the journalists were dying to ask him questions after the game, for sure. What a result that was. But we've got to say it, Kev, as impressive as... Actually, no, I forgot. Vito, I want to stick with you because we've got to talk about Mancuso, don't we? He's 29 years old. He was previously owned by Juventus, I think in 2018 or something. Now he's gone away to Juve with Empoli, and he's only gone and scored his first ever Serie A goal against Juventus. It's a remarkable story.
Yes, he's one of those guys that's risen from the lower divisions of Italian football, and Italy has that uncanny ability to find these late bloomers, these players who might not have been promising youngsters coming through the youth ranks of the big teams, but they've started from obscurity and worked their way up. Mancuso was a winger in the lower divisions, but eventually got converted into a striker, and he produced some impressive numbers at teams like Catanzaro, San Benedettese, and Pescara. Now he's with Empoli, and Empoli, with the style of play that they implement and also the way they know how to develop strikers or improve on their abilities, it's a great environment for him, and he's already become a cult hero with that goal. So it's a great memory to have, and an incredible rise for someone like him as well.
Yeah, for sure. You just know everyone in Catanzaro, with it being in the heart of Calabria, possibly even the capital of Calabria, was probably cursing him this weekend, being likely Juventus supporters down that neck of the woods. Anyway, Kev, we've got to say it because as good as Empoli were, Juventus were disastrous. We saw Giorgio Chiellini Did we? Yes, it was Chiellini say to Allegri on the side of the pitch, this isn't a team. And coming from him to Allegri in the camera's vision, that is as damning as it gets for Juve.
Yeah, well, Chiellini would certainly know. Being one of the last now of the kind of great might be a strong word, but certainly the dominant Juventus side of the last kind of decade. And I was trying to sort of put my finger on what it is, because obviously there's been some relatively poor recruitment. We know
That's
that
an
midfield
understatement, to
hasn't
be
been
fair.
up
The
to.
recruitment's been disastrous.
Well, yeah, but then I was trying to think of, you think about the side that Allegri took over, and that's pot. Well, yeah, let's not get into the Conte's Juventus over Allegri's Juventus. But I thought, player for player, they're not dissimilar in quality as to what's gone before them, but as a team, um, they are certainly not even the sum of their parts. And that Empoli goal was almost a sort of an example of where it's kind of going wrong. There's just all this sort of confusion sometimes around. There was this sort of quiet assuredness from Juventus at times. That ball wouldn't ricochet or bounce to somebody, and it just wouldn't get through that next layer of person before it broke to Mancuso to sort of slot it home. And it's all over the pitch. It's not just Chesney made mistakes last week, but it's not just him. The defense looks a little bit in a muddle at times. The midfield doesn't look like it's got any sort of coherence. And then as you sort of move forward, they just have seemed a bit lost since Ronaldo joined, which we'll get onto later, obviously. And I saw somebody refer to that as playing with 10 men until Ronaldo scores is what they've been doing since he was there. And I thought that's not quite correct, but it's not a bad sort of summation of how they've been over the last couple of years. They have often looked like a team playing with 10 men, and not just because of Ronaldo's presence on the pitch, but at times they just look so much slower to the ball and being able to get passed around. It's not something that we have associated with Juventus until probably the last 2 or
If
3
there is a way to
seasons.
plaster over these quite gaping cracks, Allegri's probably the man to find the way to do that. But do you think that there is a way for Juventus to overcome these problems on a short-term basis, being between now and, let's say, January when the window reopens?
Well, I don't know if the window necessarily will
Well, they need a
um,
midfield, right? If the
sort of
window
then.
opens and they get a decent midfielder, that will go a long way to helping things.
Yeah, I suppose this year we're not expecting there to be sort of a runaway leader by the time we get to January, because you don't want to be so far off the chasing pack. Because the problem this year for Juventus is not necessarily that there's a clear challenger that will go away and just take the title. Is that there's 4 or 5 other challengers for Champions League football, and they really don't need to be off the pace by the time January comes around. So Allegri is certainly capable of whipping them into shape, but he's going to probably have to do it by not this international break, but we have the one in October or
Both, I
November,
think.
because I don't think but I don't think he can wait. I don't think we can wait for that improvement in Juventus until sort of December,
My bold
January time.
prediction is that Juventus will be struggling. Milan will be winter champions. Juve will sign Kessie and win the league. There you go. It's out there. It's out there. No, I'm joking. Milan fans, relax, please. My God. Vito, Cristiano Ronaldo. Look, we've waited 14 minutes to talk about him. We've got to, don't we? Because he's gone. He's left Serie A. He's left Juventus. I'm personally quite pleased about that, and it is easy to point at both this result and his exit and to just laugh at Juve and say, oh look, you were Cristiano, like small club ratioed, all of this nonsense. But what are your overall thoughts on his exit?
Oh, look, the timing's not ideal simply because they don't have much time to really look for a replacement. But a guy like him, with his record and his abilities, he's not easy to replace at all, even at 36 years of age. Uh, this will probably give Allegri a bit of a chance to see if he can build a more collective unit, to see if he can build a team that's going to be, gelling well instead of having to build the attack around one star player. If we to talk about his overall impact or spell, considering that he scored 101 goals in 134 competitive matches, I mean, it's a good record, even if, like you said in a tweet, Connor, that he didn't always have that sort of wow factor about those goals. They weren't your picture goals or anything of great spectacle as such, but he was prolific nonetheless. Challenged Ciro Immobile to the Capocannoniere title in 2019-20, won it last season, scored 5 more goals than Romelu Lukaku. So his individual impact was there, but in terms of, say, what he had to bring to the table in the sense of a collective thing, um, he was brought in more or less to win the Champions League, to get them over that hurdle in Europe, and unfortunately he didn't do that. So I think that's where his spell might have been looked at as being underwhelming or anticlimactic, but I think when you produce those numbers, at least he was getting the score on the board. He was
He'll,
adapting to Italian football, and I think from that aspect, I do not think he should be labelled a flop. It's just more he did not bring that sort of. He didn't bring the big ears back to Turin.
oh, flops flop's too strong a
Mm.
word, but and his social media team and his supporters and Juventus supporters will love those numbers, because you can kind of hide
Mm.
behind those. There was an element of, it felt arrogance that he was kind of going to another, going to a team, not necessarily a league, but going to a team where he was going to pick up domestic honours, and he could kind of put the effort in for the Champions League nights, if you like, in the knockout stages. We did see that. He got them through a couple of rounds in his early years at Juventus. Didn't quite get them to, over that final hurdle. Um, you know, his final contribution is, dodging out of the way of that free kick for Porto, which maybe sums up how far he sort of struggled to actually take Juventus over that final hurdle. I think even for everything I've said about on the pitch and that sort of playing with 10 men until he pops up with a goal at the start of this season, maybe we're seeing some of the impact from the obvious departure that was coming from Juventus, and not necessarily just because he was on the bench. Because if we, I don't necessarily hate doing this, but if we look at Messi, obviously he left Barcelona for another for different reasons, but there was only ever one club that was really going to be able
Mm.
to, afford to take him, or two maybe. We put City in it. It clearly hasn't been that case with Ronaldo. It looked like City were the only team really, because he was going to go to another side where domestic honours were extremely likely. Maybe a little less likely in the Premier League, but then he'd be helping them get over the Champions League hurdle that they've been trying to jump for a number of years. But then when we have this 11th hour move to Manchester United, or however that's come about, United pushing, Ronaldo pushing, there's no been sort of gunfight over how they're, City haven't been outbid by United. It's like Juventus have just gone, yeah, it's what it feels like. Juventus have gone, he's going.
Mm.
City were in the leaders, but then United came in. They didn't even. They almost haven't even put up a fight. So, it just feels like it's, yeah, he's going. Just somebody take him off our hands now. That's, I think, that's the sad element of this kind of ending, because he did have an impact on Serie A. Obviously, it brings the media coverage, fans going to the stadiums, and the excitement of seeing him and everything else. A lot like what we've got with Mourinho now, that will come into the league with the media attention. But it never really felt like he was kind of buying into Juventus, domestically, I want to say, a little bit like a vanity project for him and Allegri. He'd be able to produce he's produced the numbers that he was still producing at Real Madrid before that, and Agnelli or Juventus would have this trophy of a player, and even Serie A had this trophy of a player. It's probably the most impressive signing of the last kind of decade to see.
Yeah.
Although Zlatan had something to say about
Absolutely
that.
right, you will. Absolutely right, you will. It's a strange one, right? I almost feel like he got these two moves done in the wrong order, in that he should have gone to United when he was 3 years younger and tried to elevate them, being able to give both in domestic competition and in the Champions League, and then come to Juve, or I don't know, maybe PSG, when he didn't quite have those legs, and maybe he just wanted to focus on European football, perhaps. Who knows? But I'm pleased to see him go. I do appreciate that. Obviously, that there was that excitement around. Oh, do you know what? I don't even want to say that there was excitement around Italian football when he was here, because there wasn't. Any excitement that was brought to Italian football was around him, and everything else was inconsequential. Nobody cared what was happening elsewhere. He played, his debut was against Chievo, and I'm pretty sure the Bentegodi sold out. Anyone who knows Chievo knows how outrageous that is, because Chievo don't come close to filling the Bentegodi when they played there. So that kind of summed it up. People did go to games to see Cristiano Ronaldo. People, my least favorite thing, I'll let you jump in a second, but my least favorite thing about Cristiano in Italy was that whenever he scored in the stadium, and it didn't really matter where it was that he scored, with the exception of a couple. But I mean, if he scored in Parma, he scored at the San Siro, he scored anywhere probably except for Bergamo, Napoli, and maybe Rome. When he did that celebration, you could hear fans in almost all parts of the stadium joining with the "see" as he landed the jump, and I'm pleased I'll never have to hear that again, to be perfectly honest with you, Kev.
No, I was just going to back you up on your excitement around Ronaldo rather than Serie A, because I remember at the time there were a couple of major newspapers that kind of did match reports on that first sort of, which they would never do for, even Verona, Juventus, they wouldn't do a match report, and it was all about Ronaldo. And then there was a couple of games, wasn't there? He hadn't scored.
I think 3.
So then, so you had a couple of weeks of kind of, is he going to flop? And then once he scored a couple of goals, that was it. That initial interest, not necessarily excitement, from even an alternative country's news. It was not Portugal. It was just Ronaldo. It's just an English language and UK newspapers. But it's exactly an example of where there was never really interest really in the league. I suppose.
A few people have pointed to his thank you message as he departed, signing it off with grazie, but grazie being spelt with 2 Z's in the middle, and people saying that, look, he was here for 3 years and he doesn't even know how to say thanks in Italian. How ridiculous is that? Which, to be honest, Cristiano, that is quite poor, although I'm not thinking for a moment that he made that graphic himself. So whoever is on his team, basics, that Google Translate will help you there. Anyway, take a short few seconds break, and then we will move on to part 2, wherein we will talk about Lazio. It's the last time we'll probably talk about Cristiano, guys. It's nice, isn't it? Anyway. Okay, we're back. It is a relief, Vito. And what is even more of a relief to Lazio fans is the fact that Maurizio Sarri has rocked up and things are going swimmingly. They played Spezia. They went 1-0 down early on. 1-0 behind for the second consecutive week as well. Not that it mattered. They came back, roaring back, and they won 6-1. Vito Sarrismo is here. Even Hisai scored. Is it time for Lazio fans and us to get excited? Because I already am.
Oh, definitely. I remember when he first came to Napoli, probably the first 3 or 4 games, he was struggling to find his feet. Then he changed the formation, and then they started steamrolling opponents. At Chelsea and Juve, he had his difficulties there, but with Lazio, it's like, from the beginning, they've really adapted to his approach. It's a bit more free flowing considering the players that he's got there, but the football's been scintillating, and they just look so confident and composed in the way they conduct themselves. They totally dominate the games, especially in this particular game. Spezia just had no answers for them, and even though they conceded early, after that, that was the catalyst for them just to tear Spezia apart, and there was a lot to admire with the way the Aquile played.
Fair to say, Vito, that they've not had the toughest opponents so far, right? But did you expect them to be playing quite like this early on under Sarri?
No, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier that you know, after he left Empoli, he would have these difficulties at the new teams that he would coach and have some issues trying to get the teams to play the football that he wants. Lazio, although they had a bit of a scare against Empoli, um, in general, I think they've really embraced his approach, and with the players that he's got there, especially in the midfield with Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto, Felipe Anderson, they've really taken things to task. Immobile is not living up to his name. He's been the opposite. He's been rather mobile as well, not just a prolific scorer. And you know you're going to have a good day when you get a guy like Patrick, who's a terrible player, especially as a defender, but I think he was very composed and he was able to just pass the ball effectively. Just kept it simple, distributed to any other defender or the midfielders in front of him, and he didn't make any idiotic mistakes. So I think if Sarri can uh, get as many of those errors out of his game, I think that's a very positive sign for Lazio.
Why are you picking on Patrick? They've just won 6-1.
Because usually he's a terrible defender. Usually he's just atrocious. But I mean, it's like Sarri. He's already waving his magic. I mean, if you can transform the worst of players, that's something to already be proud of, even in at this early stage of his stint.
I'm trying to think of a thing because sometimes the R here can be pronounced a bit like an L. I think that might be a bit of a Parma thing. But I'm trying to think of the when Harry met Sally, when Patrick met Sarri. Maybe there's a film in that combination there. Who knows? Kev, we won't entertain my daft ideas. We'll continue to talk about Ciro Immobile because he's got 4 goals in 2 games. He's got a hat-trick in the first half this weekend. And it's fair to say that after the ridiculous criticism, I mean, fair enough, he wasn't at his best, but some of the criticism over the summer was over the top, and we said that at the time as well. He is responding in the best possible way, and he is loving life under Sarri, and he's going to be the new Gonzalo Higuain.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I said on our preview pod was why I tipped him for Capo Cagliari, because they will. Sarri will create chances for him. Lovely first goal, that sort of delicate little chip.
The second
finish from outside the box was beautiful as well. And he got that little bit of luck, wasn't it? It was like directly after missing the pen, which maybe there's an element of Higuain there that Sarri's given
missing penalties.
Ciro, because he missed a couple that I can recall in a Napoli shirt. I think one against Lazio, wasn't it? But yeah, he'll get chances. The Euros is, international football. Players, okay, he plays with, but not on a weekly basis. And it's one of those. Because you're a striker, I think a lot of the excellent work you do for the team kind of gets missed, or gets missed on purpose because it's a nice narrative for a journalist to write when a striker's not scoring. So it's the easy one. It's a little bit of lazy punditry and journalism, I think, when a striker's not scoring. But Ciro will be fine, and I am quite confident. Not confident to lose another dinner bet.
Are we doing this?
He will certainly be up there. No. I'll continue to just watch Quagliarella not score.
Leave him alone. He's not having chances created from him. Jesus, today, I swear to God, I was getting angry. just watching him wander about with no one giving him the ball. But anyway, Chiro is going to be fine. Kev, I'll get a prediction of you though, because we can't make a bet on this because we think the same thing. So we'll find another thing to do that with at some point this season. How many goals is Immobile scoring in Serie A this season? He's got 42.
Yeah, I'll go 25
Disrespectful.
minimum.
Disrespectful. I'm going to say he's getting at least 30. At least 30 this season. Anyway, one of the reasons I think he might get so many goals is because Felipe Anderson is back to what he called, Vito, his home. And he scored. So I want to ask, he's had a bit of a funny time since leaving Lazio, really. What do you think of him coming back to the Biancocelesti now?
I think it's an ideal move, and also, playing in a Sarri team, I think a player of his qualities would be well suited, and it showed. For the fourth goal, it was a lovely flick on his part at Sombrero, and then just to finish like he did, it was a terrific goal on his part. And even in general play, he just looks so composed, confident on the ball, willing to take players on. And he's not always in a fixed position. He'll move around to wherever he gets those pockets of space and just dazzle on the ball. I think returning to Serie A is ideal for him. So I think the type of football that's played in Italy is more to his liking. Whereas, without becoming cliche or anything like that, I just don't think playing in the Premier League was really for him. So returning to Lazio, I think, yeah, best move for him, and I reckon he'll keep getting better.
A player who very much went to the Premier League, did very well, came to Italy, did very well, and has now changed sides in Italy is Pedro. He's settling in quite nicely there already, Kev, like basically everybody is in the blue half, and I would say the red half of the Eternal City. With Pedro, Sergio Milinkovic-Savic, Luis Alberto, and even Lucas, your mate, is there an argument to be made that Lazio, minus Patrick and maybe Pepe Reina, have one of the strongest, if not the strongest, 11s in Serie A when everyone's fit?
Yeah, sadly, I can't disagree with you. So Reina does have his blind spots on occasion, but he's getting older. I do think he's still an upgrade on Strakosha.
Do you really?
And yeah, I was never convinced by Strakosha. It was more about his performances, I think, than Reina's. I don't think there's a lot in it, but particularly if we think about Sarri's football, Reina always impressed everybody. I sort of sit around Anfield, his distribution and playing that high line as a goalkeeper. Obviously, when you're getting a bit older and you're losing a bit of your speed coming out off your line, maybe he's playing a little deeper than what he was when he was maybe even at Napoli. But yeah, they're certainly up there. Lucas is I'd happily chat to anybody over Lucas for his tactical discipline and his positioning, but he's also a more progressive midfielder than I think people give him credit for, and it'll be interesting if we see a little bit more of that from him this season under Sarri. I've not had a chance to watch Lazio in full yet, but I'll be keen to kind of see if he's doing a little bit more of what he can do, and just kind of got pigeonholed into a bit of a defensive midfielder and maybe a little bit immobile at times, but he's not actually. He's just not the speediest player. And as for Pedro, well, always going to be a success in my eyes, because I think the Barcelona side he played in was so good that his quality kind of got missed at times because of what was around him. And tremendous little player.
Anyway, that'll do for Lazio. On part 3, we'll be talking a little bit about AC Milan, who won again. Vito, Milan, they are romping it. They beat Cagliari 4-1 at the Stadio San Siro. You did the report for us on this one. You covered it for FIF. And it was a bit of an electric start. at the San Siro. Talk us through the game.
It was a fabulous first half. Both teams were playing at a high tempo. Obviously, Milan had more of the possession, but it looked like that both teams were going for it. And the Rossoneri showed that the individual qualities stood out as well, instead of not just the team play. I think the superior squad quality made the difference in this case, and eventually the Cagliari defense just could not handle them. They moved the ball very quickly. The Rossoneri were, direct, and it's been quite a while since I've seen them play with such confidence. I was honestly expecting a similar result to the Lazio Spezia game, but what they did in the first half was more than enough. And the likes of Brahim Diaz, Giroud, and even Leao, they were very impressive. And Tonali to open the scoring with that free kick, that was superb. In the second half, the game sort of slowed down. Milan showed mercy on Cagliari, but Cagliari didn't show enough to really muster a comeback or show some fight to keep the scoreboard a bit respectable. I think with what Milan done, they were so relentless in the first half, and undoubtedly they deserved the 3 points. Just a wonderful performance from Pioli's men.
Yeah, Tonali scored a gorgeous goal, and I've got to admit, I was quite happy when I saw that he had scored and gotten off the mark, because he's had a lot of criticism as well throughout the summer and last season. But then that happiness turned into not quite frustration, but I kind of just felt a little bit, oh no, why have you done that? Because I saw a video of his goal held up beside a video of Andrea Pirlo's first ever goal for Milan, and they are identical. They both took free kicks from the same position and put them into the same parts of the net. And the reason I'm not happy about this is because Tonali has been called like the new Pirlo for as long as I can remember, despite not being anything much like Andrea Pirlo as a player, except for the fact that they both are quite attractive men with the similar haircut, particularly in their youth. But that's where the comparisons stop for me. But Kev, on Tonali, is this his season? He's another year older. He's had a year at Milan now to settle, and he looks like he's ready to explode.
Yeah, I think it will certainly be a better season. And that comparison with Pirlo was one of the things that I highlighted last year as an issue for his kind of stalling, or maybe just not hitting the ground running at Milan. They were also in a very good place with regards to their league performances last year, with Kessie and Benacer in the midfield. And at that point, you couldn't really expect him to sort of come in and dominate. And because of the media attention he got, there was maybe an inaccurate price, a price agreed that was the kind of not the obligation to buy, but the opportunity to buy at the end of the season. So there was probably a little bit of the fact that he felt he needed to maybe live up to that price. People wanted him to live up to that price tag, and now it's been made permanent. Almost, he's not maybe sweating over whether he's actually going to be a full-time Milan player, and actually the price that they managed to negotiate down a little is probably more reflective of actually where he is with his career and how old he is. It's almost like Brescia were charging them for the potential as opposed to what he was at the time. And now that we've got Kessie just kind of slowly coming back from the African nations, mind you, actually he will leave for the Africa Cup of Nations at some point this season, so it'll be another opportunity for Tonali to get some minutes in his belt. But actually, obviously, the Olympics is what Kessie's come back from, so he's had a shorter summer. And again, so I think that maybe that pressure, knowing that he's getting those minutes, and maybe Pioli's been very open with him, saying, start of the season, I'm going to give you this run of games. The season usually starts at a little bit of a slower pace. We mentioned the heat last week, so possibly everything is kind of lining up into place for Tonali this year to have a good sort of finally have that breakthrough season.
Fingers crossed. Vito, we've got players like Tonali, Rafael Leao, Who else is there? Simon Kjaer, Olivier Giroud. There's a lot of these players who are very much at the opposite ends of their careers. And I think we saw on Sunday evening that when it all comes together, this is when Milan are at their best, right?
Oh, certainly, and it's a good balance too because those veterans, they're well seasoned, uh, they have an understanding of the game in general, and they've had respectable careers, particularly Giroud, so they can advise these young players and give them some confidence. Whereas the youngsters they brought in, they've been good acquisitions and they've shown that they do have a lot of potential, and then there's also the room for them to improve. Uh, it also shows that Pioli's been able to give them a structure, but the team's balanced. Again, what I do like about this team is that there are players in natural positions and roles that really suit them. He's not experimenting or he's not chopping or changing or trying to make them into something that they're not. So I think with most of the positions being well covered, I think that's really been beneficial for the squad and allows them to play the best football that they can.
You look at the squad, and they've got a lot of exciting players, some big names in Kjaer. I said Kjaer a minute ago, didn't I? I'm sorry, Simon. With Kjaer, Ibrahimovic, and Giroud. They've got all of these young players. Vito, you gave Brahim Diaz man of the match this evening as well. But then, Kev, you've got the likes of Davide Calabria and Alessandro Florenzi. And it's easy to look at them and just kind of think, nah. But they've got quite a big role to play there this season, don't they?
Yeah, well, I think particularly at fullback when you've got Hernandez going off on his runs up the
He was
left hand
great
side.
tonight. He was great. I'm not going to have you slander him today.
No, but I think for balance because unlike where people want two really dynamic kind of fullback stroke wing backs, which I think is fine in a free or in other formations maybe where you drop a centre, your defensive midfielder drops into the centre half. But so I think actually having a Calabria brings a bit of balance, and I don't think he's poor going forward. But why not have those players that kind of just go undetected? Because the fans always love kind of that sort of player. I had until last week even missed that Florenzi had gone to Milan until he came off of the bench. But they had Conti from Atalanta. There was this kind of dynamic rampaging. Again came in with a
He's
lot
still
of
technically
hope that
there
he
as
would.
well, I think. They're trying to get rid of him. I don't think they have yet.
Yeah, but but that didn't work. So then why not Calabria? Calabria's kind of there was injury problems with Conti, but he's kind of seen off the challenges of other fullbacks. So yeah, I think they're kind of fundamental to the way teams work. Just having that player that keeps their head down, um, not doing a bad
No,
job at
not
all.
at
Is he?
all. I quite like him actually. To be honest, he's quite easy to look at and think, he's not great, but I do.
He's got a nice rolled down side as well.
I've
Which
actually noticed that he's just one
yeah,
of those admirable
yeah,
professionals, though, isn't he? You know what you're getting with him. He's never going to give you a 10 out of 10, but he'll probably never give you a 2 out of 10. You're always going to get between like a 6 and a 7 out of Calabria. So I think there's definitely a space for that in any team, and I think Florenzi's a little bit cut from the same cloth. Vita, 1 point from two for Cagliari, though. After the way they finished last season, it's not the kind of start that Semplici will have hoped for.
No, not at all. They just seems that all this stuff with not being able to sign Raja Nainggolan again, and he's gone to Royal Antwerp back in his native Belgium. Rog out for the season, and then there's also this talk of Nandez leaving. That would unsettle the squad, so that's not good. Cranio didn't play in this game, but I think Milan played so well that even it would have been hard even for him to stop that sort of demolition. And just up front, I think they're going to be relying a lot on João Pedro again to provide that spark. And his pass to Dayola was superb. I mean, we need to see a lot more from that from him if Cagliari stand a chance of survival. And Pavoletti was quite disappointing, but he's the kind of guy that needs crosses, and Cagliari weren't uh, producing many because Theo and Leao were just dominant on the left, and then on the right you've got Calabria and Salamakers putting a good shift. So for Cagliari, it just was not easy at all to put in any adequate supply for Pavoletti just hang in the air.
Luckily, Salernitana and Venezia are doing so badly that Cagliari are probably only going to be fighting with one other side for
Just
survival.
like last season, basically. Although it's the two new boys who are very, very much in trouble, it would seem. Anyway, that'll do. We will return for part 4, and we'll talk very quickly about the other Serie A games as well. All right, so where shall we start with these? I think, Kev, I'll come to you for Atalanta Bologna. It finished 0-0. Mihailovic parked the bus, and it worked. Job done, take a point, run back to Bologna, basically.
Yeah, I saw the highlights of this. I did think that Atalanta were a little wayward in some of their finishing. But maybe that just comes out of the frustration from Mihailovic's kind of defensive stance. And when you are playing a side like Atalanta at home, first game of the season, it's not a bad tactic to attempt, and he got away with it. So he will be happy. Bologna will be happy. The fans will be happy. Just Gasparini that won't be too happy. So yeah, it's. There won't be many other games like that for Atalanta. I think when you've got Zapata and Muriel up to speed later in the season.
No, I mean, well, Duvan's out for a month at the moment, unfortunately, and Muriel had the Copa America with Duvan this summer. So yeah, there were a lot of chances for Atalanta, particularly in the first few minutes, that once they didn't take those, the chances were fewer and farther between, and you could kind of see that the writing was on the wall from about an hour in, unfortunately. I had something to say, but I've completely forgotten. Oh yeah, this was the first 0-0 in Serie A of the season, and it came between Atalanta, perhaps the most exciting team in Europe for the last 2 or 3 years, and Bologna, who have scored and conceded a combination of about 25 goals in a Coppa Italia match and their opening Serie A game of the season. So there you go. That's both of those teams' only scoreless draw of the season. There's going to be goals even more than there would otherwise have been when they return from the international break. The next game, Vito, Salernitana played Roma. They lost 4-0, I believe it finished. Veritu's on fire. Abraham is off the mark and looking brilliant. And Mourinho has found a son in Lorenzo Pellegrini, it would seem.
Oh, they just completely dominated Salernitana. They just looked very composed on the ball, passing with great freedom, and they had great composure. I like the way they played, to be honest, because I don't think we've really seen Mourinho team play with such endeavour, probably since his Real Madrid days, to be honest. I know it sounds a bit cliched, especially regarding Mourinho, but it's an impressive approach so far. And the players you mentioned, Vertu, getting into scoring positions from deep. He's been fantastic in that role, and he can only get better with Mourinho. And Abraham, he's adapting to Italian football very quickly. Just looks so fast, mobile, and it was a fine finish on his part to score. And then, yeah, Pellegrini, he probably, I wouldn't say he caused controversy, but I think he was having a bit of a dummy spit when he released that story on Instagram. But I think now with Mourinho, he can show what a footballer he can be. When he performs, he can be an integral part of that Giallorossi team. And there were two good finishes, especially the fourth one. That was an excellent bending strike from Pellegrini. So hopefully for their sake, Pellegrini can produce that type of form.
I find it crazy, to be honest. I'm one of the people who's always been slightly doubtful of Pellegrini, but Mourinho said during the week I'd play 3 Pellegrinis in my team if I had them. He loves him, and it's interesting to see. Maybe Pellegrini is going to be his Frank Lampard type, where he just puts his arm around the shoulder and falls in love. So I'm wondering who the John Terry character is going to be, because I don't know if Roma have that character, unless it's going to be Big Chris. I can't see it, to be honest. But maybe it's Tammy
Kumbula.
Abraham. Who knows? Kumbula, possibly, Vito. Possibly. Kev, Genoa 1, Napoli 2. Big Andrea Patagna walked onto the pitch and had barely stopped walking when he headed in the winner for Napoli. The king is back.
Yeah, he's off the mark. Sal Osman, don't need him.
Sell Insigne as well. Let him leave. Just play Patagna, play with 10. You're
Yeah.
sorted.
Yeah. Well, I saw Sam Vito in the week on Twitter was bigging up sort of Patagna maybe being a better option for
They're linked
Samp,
with him.
So maybe it was just an audition for Samp to get the big man in. He came in, did what was asked of him. Do you think he would have been a little bit disappointed not to start, considering Osman serving a suspension?
I'm not sure. I think Patagna went there kind of knowing his role, in truth, particularly with Aussie men there. Napoli aren't a team that play with a player like Andrea Patagna when things are going to plan, unfortunately. But maybe he'll start next week. Or not next week. It's isn't it against Juve? Don't they play Juve in the first game back after the international break?
I haven't looked,
because I know Ozyman got a 2-game ban, and I'm pretty sure the second of those is against Juve.
Yes, it is. I remember reading that. Yeah, because it is.
Yeah, it is. Get big Andrea in the 11, Luciano. You will not regret it if the Spal version shows up. Verona 1, Inter 3, Vito. Correa, I mean, he came off the bench just like Patagna did, but he scored 2 goals from the bench. One of them was a great header, and the other was a lovely finish from just outside the box. Not a bad way to introduce yourself to your new set of supporters, particularly when a lot of people are very skeptical about your move in the first place.
Yeah, that's true, because Correa does have that reputation for being inconsistent and not being prolific. But
have we lost?
Talk about a super sub impact. That's what it was.
Vito, just repeat that, please, because it seemed to cut out on our end.
Mm-hmm. Correa certainly made that super sub impact. I mean, it was an incredible way to make a debut, and he did have those doubters there, questioning his prolificness and his inconsistency at Lazio. But to score the 2 goals like he did, I think that was fantastic on his part. Inter. Apologies, Nerazzurri fans. Inter did have a bit of a struggle against Verona. They weren't as fluid as they were against Genoa, but I think, again, this is when they show that when you have that star quality, it makes the difference. And Correa made sure that the points were going back to, the blue and black part of Milan with those goals in the last 10 minutes. And joy to watch. I think he can make an impact later.
Does he get in your team of the week, Vito?
Oh, definitely.
I know if he comes off the bench, I know sometimes you don't allow that. He only played 15 minutes.
It varies, but I think with what he did in such a limited time and to secure such a win, he makes my team of the week.
Kev's only asking because he wants to use him as player of the week, but he has to be sure that he's in the team before he does that.
No. I'll stick by a sort of 15-minute cameo. Isn't enough when somebody else has scored a hat trick? Maybe not. Giving away.
I wonder who that could be. Anyway, I was at the Mappe for Sassuolo Sampdoria. Finished 0-0. I don't know how, to be perfectly honest with you, because for the first 20 minutes, it was end to end. Nobody was defending. Everybody was pushing forward, and it was great. The next 20 minutes were still quite lively, but not quite as lively. And then the second half, basically, not much happened at all. But Sassuolo peppered Emile Adero's goal, and I've got to give him credit. We pointed fingers at him for the goal he conceded against Brahim Diaz, I believe, in the first round of fixtures this season, but he was brilliant today. Filip Juricic, Raspadori, Jeremy Boga, Chicho Caputo, everybody had a go. But Aldero just said no, and he is the reason that Samp left Reggio Emilia with a point in the bag, so they'll be pleased enough with that, I'd imagine. Kev, Fiorentina beat Torino in their... It's not I was going to say the friendly derby, but it's not a derby, it's just a friend match, because they have that twinning, the gemellaggio between the two ultras there, and it's always quite amicable. Fiorentina won 2-1 anyway. Vlahovic and Nico Gonzalez both scored.
Yeah, there's a little bit of hype, certainly a lot of optimism around Gonzalez, so it was nice to see him get off the score sheet. It was it looked like it didn't have enough pace on it. It was really kind of a delicate curled effort. So it was more about accuracy than power. And then it was a great move that was finished off by Vlahovic, which Bonaventura sent over a cross that was just gagging to be headed.
He did. Our Jack. We love Jack. Jack propaganda on FIF is always welcome. Vito. Something I'm not very welcoming of was the fact that Udinese beat Venezia 3-0. Venezia, Ewan described them once as a club that is just 100% vibes. So from now on, they are Venezia, the vibe club. They're struggling in Serie A, it's fair to say. Losing 3-0 against Udinese it's not a great way to start life in the top tier.
No, not at all. And also against, I wouldn't say a regional rival because they're from two separate regions, but they're from that part of northeastern Italy. So when those kind of teams play each other, it's not always friendly at all. So for the Zebrette to smash them 3-0, I'm sure the Veneziani would not be through whatsoever. And once again, I think it just shows that Venezia's team, just the squad looks out of depth. Again, these players are really lacking Serie A experience. And they also just sold one of the main talisman in Serie B, Francesco Di Mariano. He was a good forward for them, good scorer and creator. He's gone to Lecce. He stayed in Serie B, which I think is a shame because I think he deserved a shot in Serie A. But that's the path they've taken, and I'm already feeling pessimistic about Venezia.
Yeah, I am too. You've reminded me of something that it's a riddle and a question that I stumbled across by accident while chatting to Kev last week, waiting to start the podcast recording. So I'm going to ask our listeners this question: Which Serie A team is in Friuli Venezia Giulia but isn't in Friuli Venezia Giulia? And while our listeners ponder that question, Kev, you've got a bit of a gripe because Udinese wore a dreadful green and basically like a Sprite can kit at home.
Yeah, I switched on and I thought, what's going on? I was pretty sure that Venezia were playing a lot of their first games of the season away from home. And then I found myself actually wanting the ban on green kits to take place this season rather than next because it's a god awful colour.
It's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's up there. I don't think we've done anything on good and we did do good and bad kits. I don't think
I don't know where it came from. It just seems to appear, didn't it, this weekend? Because I didn't actually see this, and then you said that Udinese wore a green kit at home, and I thought, what? They've not got a green kit, have they? But yeah. Strange one.
Oh. They rock up in all sorts
of
stuff, don't they?
They do, and this is one of the reasons why we'd be happy to see them fall down to Serie B. Listeners, I'll put you out of your misery. The Serie A team which is in Friuli Venezia Giulia but isn't in Friuli Venezia Giulia is, of course, Venezia. It's a strange one, but Venezia is not in that region. It's actually in the region of Veneto, but of course the word Venezia is in Friuli Venezia Giulia. So I stumbled across that last week, had a bit of fun with it. Nobody else did, so I'm sure that none of you listeners did, but I'm enjoying it, and that is, in my mind, all that matters. So you can stuff it. Anyway, look, that's all of the Serie A football we've got to talk about. Before we let you guys go, though, we've got to play the game. So last week, Kev, I gave you a charity point. I got the points. First week of the season, there were 3 of you, and I got the point. But we'll go again. Kev, as a person who picked up a point last week, I'm going to let you go first, even though you didn't win, but you came.
Oh, I thought you were going to let me. I thought you were going to let me go.
You're so
let me
funny.
go.
You're so funny.
Oh.
Anyway, you know the rules. Let's go, mystery Serie A player. It's quite an easy one, given the fact that my selection process is very flawed for this game. But anyway, Kev, take it away.
Are
yes,
they Italian?
They are Italian.
Do they play in
They do,
Northern Italy?
yes.
Do they play in
They do
Milan?
not play in Milan. When you say Milan, I don't know if you mean the club or the city.
Oh, okay. Well, say
they do not play in the city of Milan. No. Vito, over to you.
Do they play in Emilia Romagna?
They do, yes.
Is it a Sassuolo player?
Yes, it is. Vito knows. Vito knows the logic.
Is it Giacomo Raspadori?
It is not Giacomo Raspadori. I thought that was too obvious. So it's not. So, Kev, you know that it's an Italian player who plays for Sassuolo.
Yeah. Is it Domenico?
Why are we going with
Berardi?
names already? We usually do positions. No, it's not Berardi.
Well,
over to Vito.
Is it a defender?
It's not a defender. No, Kev.
Is it
yes,
a midfielder?
He is a midfielder.
Bugger. Oh.
Be honest with you.
Why have I not?
I heard the fans singing his name today, and I thought, is he still there? Really?
It's not.
No, what's his name? What is his name? You're so close, but I cannot give you that because that is not his name. You said Manielli. No.
Yeah.
Francesco.
Oh, okay, then V.
You're missing a syllable.
Maganelli. Yeah.
Can you
there?
Can you
I
spell
can see
it?
the name. I can't say it, sadly. Oh, is it Magini? Is that how you spell it?
No, like I get it.
And I'm thinking of a number.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of a number 4
Vito,
on the shirt as well, which I don't.
Vito,
think
we've got to give him this point, don't we? It's
Yeah, look, he's tried. Look, I'd give him that too.
Yeah.
It's
who is it? Because they're like 38 or something now.
He is 36 years old, surpringly. Francesco Magnanelli.
Okay.
Yes, there you go.
It's certainly one that I'd look up before getting berated for spelling it wrong on a match report. So.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Congratulations, Kev. 2 from 2 with an asterisk beside that, but it's a good start. Vito, I think we should just let him win until about game week 18, and then you could just win the subsequent 30, 20, 20, and then take it.
Well, I'm also doing my kind of slow build up into the season. As you both know, I've not watched a lot of the games this week.
Well, don't say that while we're still recording.
Well, no, I'm just kind of saying that once I've actually got to, I'll soon be able to just watch every game that you're reporting on, Connor, and then that will give me a better idea of at least, I'll have maybe 22 or 44 players to kind of choose from if I just know which games you're doing. I haven't had that luxury yet this season.
All right, guys, thank you for lending us your ears for the last hour and a bit. Kev, have you anything else to say? Tell them to support us on Patreon.
Yes, good. Support us on Patreon, and we will give you.
Well, you're going to give them topless.
I'm going to give them an hour of my life. Topless.
Vito, have you anything else to say?
Not related to this. Well, again, just the sentiments of Patreon. You can pay €2, €5, €10. Pay.
Pay.
I mean, yes. Dedicate. You won't regret it.
Well,
support us. Yes.
Preferably the €5 tier, because to be honest, the €5 tier is definitely the best value for money, and we do want to ask you guys to tell us what you would like to hear more of. Would you like to hear us do podcasts on great calcio teams, podcasts on great calcio matches, whatever, individuals, Italian regions, stuff that's not related to football but is related to Italy? I mean, some of us do live here as well, so we are very much the guys to ask about that. Let us know. Join us on Patreon, and we'll have you taken on a tour of Italy and Italian football with us. Thank you very much. Kev, say goodbye. I could see you wanted to say something else. That's why I told you specifically to say goodbye. Vito, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We will speak to you very soon. Oh, it's the international break. I don't know when we'll speak to you again. Patrons will speak to you at least twice over the international break. Other people, who knows?